Hello students, in my last video I had given a brief introduction about what is reproduction. Reproduction means producing new organisms. Every organism, whether it is a plant or whether it is an animal, it produces animal organisms of its own kind. Means plants produce new plants, animals produce young ones of their own type. Like the trees produce neem trees, mango trees produce mango trees, banana trees produce banana trees. Like that, cat produces kitten, dog produces puppies, elephant produce baby elephants, humans produce human beings, babies, is it not? So, through this process of reproduction, the generation continues, the progeny continues. When the first plant came into existence, we don't know. When the first human being came into existence, we don't know. There are theories, but no proper evidence. Still, we guess. But since then, say about 50,000, 60,000 years ago, human beings started existing. So, since then, human race is continuing. Human beings are continuing to exist because of reproduction. So, also different plants and animals. Now, this reproduction is of two types. One is called asexual reproduction and another one is called sexual reproduction. One is called asexual reproduction and another one is called as sexual reproduction. These are the two main types of reproduction through which the organisms continue their generations. Right? Now, in asexual reproduction, there is one single individual involved, single parent is involved in asexual, that's what is called asexual. Okay, whereas in sexual reproduction there are two individuals required. One is what we call as the male and another one is called as the female. So interaction of male and the female will produce a new organism, that is sexual reproduction. I'll come to it later on. Now, asexual or asexual reproduction. In this asexual reproduction, there are different types through which the organisms produce new ones or new organisms or what we call as offsprings. Organisms produce offsprings or new organisms of their own kind. So, there are different types like fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration, spore formation and vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation applies only to plants, whereas these apply to plants and animals. Different types, whereas vegetative is only confined to the plants. That's why we use the term vegetative, right? So, fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration, spore formation. I will try to explain one by one. Okay. Firstly, what is meant by fission? Fission means breaking or splitting. This pen, if it is broken into two, we call it as fission. Breaking up of one organism into two individuals, which we call as daughter cells, we call as fission. So there are two types of this fission. This usually takes place in unicellular organisms. Fission takes place usually in unicellular organisms like our amoeba, bacteria, right? Now, if the organism breaks into two organisms, only two individuals, if the parent divides into two daughter cells, we call it as binary fission. We call it as binary fission. If the parent organism divides into only two, not more than two, we call it as binary fission. Say for example, amoeba. If it breaks into two, then we call it as binary fission. Similarly, if suppose there is a bacterial cell, this bacterial cell will become longer and longer, it will elongate and then break into two. So two portions, two parts are formed from the main organism, that we call as binary fission. Breaking up of or splitting up of the parent cell into two daughter cells we call as binary fission. Okay, now if the organism divides into a number of parts or number of pieces or a large number of daughter cells, what we call it as multiple fission. We call it as multiple fission. Binary fission, splitting up of one organism into two, like amoeba or bacteria, like that, unicellular organisms. If the organism splits into more than two, then we call it as multiple fission. Means what? Inside the organism, so many divisions will be taking place and so many daughter cells are formed. So many daughter cells are formed and all these daughter cells come out suddenly, all together, by the bursting of the parent. So what happens? Suddenly they spread into the environment, which happens in case of one organism called as Plasmodium. One organism called Plasmodium. Its complete name is Plasmodium vivax. It's called Plasmodium vivax. This Plasmodium vivax is a malarial parasite. Means it causes malaria. This particular unicellular organism or protozoa, what we call, spreads through multiple fission. It produces a number of daughter cells which burst out. The parent cell burst out and release all these daughter cells outside. That is how the malaria spreads very fast. Malaria spreads very fast because of this reason, right? So this we call as multiple fission. Breaking up of a parent into large number of individuals or daughter cells is called multiple fission. Example, Plasmodium, Plasmodium vivax, which is a malarial parasite. Next, budding, bud. We have different types of buds. We say flower bud. Is it not? Buds will be there. Buds then mature into flowers. Is it not? Like that here also, budding means a small outgrowth, a small tumor like a tuber or outgrowth forms on the body of the parent. That outgrowth we call as a bud. It's called as bud. This bud becomes larger. It becomes larger and grows into an adult. At maturity, the adult or the bud cuts off from the parent and grows into an individual organism. This we call as budding. For example, see, there is one organism, aquatic animal called as hydra. This is called as hydra. It is called hydra. This hydra produces a small bud. It produces a small bud. This bud later grows into an adult. These are called tentacles, right? As the bud grows into an adult, it cuts off from the parent and grows into a new organism. This is called budding. This process is called budding. Growing of an outgrowth from on the body of the parent, which at maturity detaches or cuts off from the body of the parent and grows into a new organism, we call as budding, which happens in animal organisms like hydra, or there is another example which is called as yeast. Yeast is a fungus. Yeast is a fungus. We use yeast in bakeries for fermentation and all. This is yeast. There are small buds formed on the body of the yeast. These buds fall to the ground and grow into new organisms. These buds grow at maturity, cut off from the parent, fall to the ground and grow into new organisms. This is what we call budding. This is another mode of asexual reproduction. Right? Now, coming to third one called fragmentation. Called as fragmentation. What is fragmentation? Fragment means piece again. Fragment again refers to pieces. Now there are some multicellular algae. There are some algae. Where do algae grow? Always algae grow in moist areas or on the surface of waters, ponds, ditches, etc. Algae grow there. So the multicellular algae, which are filamentous in nature, their body is not very much differentiated. They are simple organisms. Simple multicellular algae, they break up into pieces. They break into pieces. These multicellular algae, like Spirogyra, they break into a number of pieces. Example, Spirogyra, Ulothrix, etc. These filamentous algae, they are like long ribbons. They cut into different pieces, and each piece, or what we call as a fragment, grows into new plants, new algae. The main organism, that is Spirogyra, breaks into large number of pieces, and each piece then grows into a new organism. This we call as fragmentation. Filament, which happens in multicellular filamentous algae. Alright? So, fission, splitting up of the parent organism into two or more parts, which we call pieces or daughter cells. We use the term daughter cells. If two daughter cells are formed, we call binary fission. If more than two are formed, it is called multiple fission. Okay. Now there is one more organism called Leishmania. Okay. That Leishmania, it breaks horizontally, it splits horizontally. Whereas amoeba and bacteria, they split horizontally. But Both are binary fissions only. Then multiple fission, I told you example Plasmodium vivax, which causes malaria. Then budding, a small outgrowth formed on the body of the parent, which later splits or gets away from the body of the parent, grows into new organism. Third type, fragmentation, which happens in multicellular algae like Spirogyra, where the filamentous algae breaks into different pieces, and each piece, which we call as a fragment, grows into a new organism. Alright, this next one, regeneration, spore formation and vegetative propagation. This I will discuss in my next video. Regeneration, generation, new regeneration, formation of new parts or new organs in the body is called regeneration. Spore formation, forming microscopic structures which are called spores by certain fungi. Okay, it's called spore formation. I will come to these regeneration, spore formation and vegetative propagation in my next video. Right? Thank you.